Ready to go? Ready to go? Ready to
go? Wait. Okay.
Yep. Season 6, baby. Let's do it. Good morning, good afternoon. Oh, for fuck's sake, Cookie.
Yeah, I did it. I got one in. All right. Now I'm ready.
I hate you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Season 6 of Endurance Chat. I am Michael Zalivari once again, and joining me today to talk one of the premier sports car events of the world, we have the two Americans, Cookie Monster FL, Austin Zetzman, and Kris Washer 97. Welcome back to Season 6!
Season 6. This is how we label things. Congrats. No, yeah, it's great.
We've turned into the WEC. We've gone from whatever last year was to Season 6. There we go.
Okay. Heck yeah, I'm all about it.
Hell
I'm all
yeah.
about it.
When we do the last podcast of the season, can we do a commercial like, don't miss the thrilling season finale?
Yes, honestly, we should be doing that now. I mean, if we aren't, we're missing out on some, just easy wins here for some of the listeners. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. Oh. But yeah, no, this is, can you imagine that this is the year after 2020? Yeah,
we're living in a post-2020 lifestyle now.
If you listen to all of our podcasts for some ridiculous reason, all in a yearly order for the Rolex, you'd be like, okay, yeah, this one's already off the rails, but it's just because it's it's been 2020. I don't even know how we'll even keep this organized in general. So, but yeah, I'm ready for racing.
Yes,
I'm definitely ready for racing at this point.
Oh my god, how good was just watching the Dubai 24 hour last weekend? I didn't even take in much of the race, but just watching cars go around the track and then going to bed with cars going around the track and then waking up with cars going around the track. It's just such a wholesome feeling inside you just to be a part of that again.
Even though they're slow.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Not really. All right, they're not fast. We'll just say that. But they're definitely sports cars.
Hey, remember when we were meant to be talking about Rolex? Already. There has been so much news in the month that we've taken off, between the Asian Le Mans series changing its calendar and getting another 5 cars or something, between the cancellation of the Bathurst 12 hour, which we knew already, the WEC entry list being revealed and the new calendar. There's been so much, but we can't cover all of it right now because we do have some time commitments that we need to get ahead of, and there's a lot to cover today. But rest assured, in the coming 2 or 3 weeks or so, we should get through Asian Le Mans series preview and WEC preview, and we should cover all of that. But first, we have a first for us at Endurance Chat, and I haven't told anyone about this yet, so this is a big surprise to everyone. For the first time in 6 years, we have a sponsor. We actually have someone who has given us money to advertise on our little project, and that sponsor is the Racing Line app for iOS. So, this is kind of crazy and kind of cool, but thank you to the Racing Line for sponsoring this podcast.
I expect to see that check in my mail in a week.
Firstly, we got to cover, hosting fees and whatever. But anyway, the Racing Line. The Racing Line app. Here we go. The Racing Line is a motorsport calendar and notification app for iOS devices. It includes all major series, with more being added all the time, giving you a daily and weekly list of races so you can easily see what's coming up. All events converted to your local time zone, so you don't need me to convert them for you and then get them wrong and then miss the start of races. It also lets you customize notifications so you can choose what you're notified about and how early you're notified for a certain series. So give them a look on the iOS store. Just search for the Racing Line or check them out on Twitter. And yeah, thank you so much to the Racing Line for jumping on board and sponsoring us. It's incredible. It only took 6 years for someone to be interested enough to sponsor us, but it's kind of awesome, right? We have a sponsor.
I mean, really, it's incredible. But I feel like what's more incredible is that it almost seems like they listened to the podcast to an extent where we messed up so many start times and have struggled with not missing live events. They're we need to help these guys specifically so that they stop missing this stuff, because I've done, and we've done it. I think there was a subreddit at one point for this stuff. There's different things that I've subscribed to do it, and I feel like this is probably the most natural way you could kind of get the information to you, especially with smartphones and stuff. So, I mean, it's not like it's something that we won't use.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, I feel like a lot of people that are listening would probably use it too. So why not?
And
That's awesome.
oh my god, if it can help me get through the like 3 weeks where Australian daylight saving changes, Europe's daylight saving changes, and America's daylight saving changes, all not at the same time, then praise be, because that is literally for me the worst time to be writing up those weekly threads for races, because it's just the worst, okay? Just trying to keep track of everything. So thank you very much to the Racing Line. Check them out in the iOS store. As far as I know, there isn't it's not released on the Google Play Store yet, or at all. But we will see what happens with that. There's a lot of little things that are focused, and we can give you a full rundown. I'm sure you can have a look on the App Store and see if you want to get onto it all. But yeah, thank you very much for the Racing Line for sponsoring this podcast. Wow, getting the shill in straight away.
Mm-hmm. Yep, got to. I'm
We
downloading it right now as we speak.
Yeah. Back onto the real stuff. It's Rolex time, baby. It's the first big one of the year. So there's a lot of changes in the IMSA paddock for 2021, including the introduction of the LMP3 class to IMSA competition in the top level for the first time after loitering around in PC for a little while. What do we think of the 50-car field and the inclusion of LMP3? Great. We think nothing. Awesome. We can just move right on there.
Totally waiting for Kris to start. Dang it.
Oh, it was a big game of chicken.
Yeah. Oh, I won?
No, neither of you won. I won. I won the game of chicken. Okay, Cookie, 50 cars. It's a big race from last year.
Yeah, it's a much bigger race. Still, I don't believe, I mean, it's up there. It's definitely, I think the car count's right about there, what we were expecting pre-COVID. So, but yeah, it's a lot of inclusion of some new machinery to the class, well, to the entire endurance race in general for this one for just 24 hours. Again, I'm not sure. I think I might have asked this before. Is this the first time we've ever seen MP3s run in a 24-hour environment like this?
Yes.
No, actually.
Ooh, okay.
25 hours of Thunderhill.
Oh, but that's not a real endurance race.
Well, and I think that was using some of the Genetti equipment, right? Or were they eventually using Ligiers?
I think a Ligier was ran last year.
Okay.
But I digress. I think
and it finished second overall.
Far
the
out.
LMP, yeah, actually, because then Flying Lizard got it with like the Audi, right, or something.
Something like that, but it did finish second overall. I don't know if they had any mechanical issues, but they have ran and finished a 25-hour race before with the Ligier.
Okay. So yeah, but still, I mean, that is if you want to even consider that a handful of times that it's actually run in that environment. So it'll be just an interesting see how the machinery fares, and then also you just have a lot of question marks behind the wheel in those cars.
Yeah. So
it is a very, very highly potential for LMPC. So if you have a drinking problem, please be careful.
Yeah.
And we'll keep you advised for that. But
we'll get deeper into that when we talk about the LMP3 class particularly, but they are all very, very good points, Cookie Monster. Chris, how much staying power do you reckon these extra entries have? We've seen, last year we only had 39 entries for Rolex, and then as the season progressed with the whole changes to the series from coronavirus, we lost a few entries, but 50 entries on race one, that's a pretty good start. How many do you reckon we'll see come Sebring or come whatever's after that?
Well, I don't believe it's 50 entries anymore. It's down to 49 since Tim Pappas of the Black Swan Racing
yes.
Had COVID. There were plans to have an extra LMP3 fielded by Mueller Motorsports, but I do not know if that's going to come to fruition. So as of right now, we only have 49 cars. But I think most of the LMP2 teams, we're not going to see those go full season. I believe like High Class and Racing Team Netherlands, obviously only here for the Rolex, and now that Sebring is canceled
for the WEC,
correct.
Yep.
For the WEC, I don't see them staying in the States or potentially doing that race. So like the LMP2 is probably going to have a huge dive. LMP3, I think most of them are full season, or at least endurance only. GTD, obviously, you're going to have, I think we're going to have about I'm gonna say 12, 15 full season, just as off top of my head. And then obviously, I believe we have 6 full-time DPIs, and then obviously GT Le Mans is just gonna be the 2 Corvettes and the Porsche full season, and the BMWs are only gonna be for the Enduro round. So I think 49 cars for the Rolex is great, but I don't know. I think we're gonna have 10, 15 less cars for the actual full season.
Yeah, so let's jump into all these cars and discuss a little bit more about the classes. And I will pre-warn everyone, all the information that we're going to be talking about has been shamelessly stolen from the Daily Sports Car series by Ryan Kish, the Rolex 24 entry list unpicked. So thank you very much, Ryan. There's nothing I love more than mooching off my colleagues in every walk of life, as we can see here with this podcast. But 5 classes for the first time in a long time. Let's go from the top. DPI, as Kris mentioned, 6 full season entries. There's been quite a lot of reshuffling in those entries as well. A little bit of downsizing, a little bit of upskilling as well, and some massive star power into the class. Let's talk about the bad news first. We've already mentioned it. 6 full season cars, 7 for Rolex. It is the smallest DPI entry for IMSA since the launch of the class back in 2017. God, so long ago. And that breaks down to 1 Mazda, 2 Action Express Racing Cadillacs? No, Cadillacs, right? Yes. And then one full season, 1 just for the Rolex. The return of Chip Ganassi Racing in a Cadillac. The return of Maya Shank Racing into an Acura into the top class in an Acura, and also Wayne Taylor Racing step into the Acura as well. So a few familiar names there, a few nice returns to the top class. But how concerned should we be with the health of the DPI class? Is there a reason to be concerned at right now, a week out of Rolex, with the number of cars in this class? Kris?
Well, I mean, isn't DPI getting replaced by LMDH 2023 anyway? So I think for the next couple of years, I think we'll have a stagnant amount of teams we have here until the new regulations kick in. So I'm not too worried.
Not too worried? Okay, Cookie, what about you? Are you worried?
I mean, along the same lines of Kris, I wouldn't be worried. However, I think this does pose a bit of an issue where it comes to just a natural expansion of the class. It doesn't seem to be it. It seems like, especially in the US, that it's still not a big enough market to kind of naturally be bringing in, in between regulation cycles, extra manufacturers or extra chassis or extra privateers that are entering beyond what is already available, it seems like. So, and just a correction too, it wasn't 2 of the AXRs, it's JCDC is doing one of them. So,
yes,
but they're both Cadillacs. So no, I mean, the car count, is down, but technically I would say the quality of cars is still there to a certain extent. We are missing one of the Mazdas, so that would, that's unfortunate. But at the same time, like I said, I think it just speaks for the fact that for whatever reason, a lot of the IMSA fan base was just very much of a we are very this is different. We know this is how you do this in terms of getting more prototype overall big time racing getting in here. And while we did lose Penske and we did trade out for Chip Ganassi, it's still we're not adding it. It's not being it doesn't need to be NASCAR, but we're not seeing a Chip Ganassi and a Penske and a Hendrick and, all this other stuff where we're seeing lots of these and they're seeing the worth of, okay, fine, we might not win this race and we might not, we might finish 4th in the championship this year, but next year we can win it.
Yeah. And
I feel like you see that in IndyCar, NASCAR, and other stuff in the US, but for some reason in IMSA, still the DPI isn't necessarily getting what I think people thought it was going to initially. So,
yeah. And if you look
but I'm not necessarily worried too much about it.
Yeah, if you look at the timeline of DPI since its inception, we had 4 factory outfits when it started. The 2 Cadillac outfits in Action Express and Wayne Taylor Racing, the Mazdas and Core Autosport. Well, no, ESM running the Nissans. Then that got transferred to Core, and Acura came in, and then since then it's just been a little bit of downsizing in each instance. So we've gone from 10 factory cars to 6 factory cars with 2 privateers, now to just 6 factory cars. So it has been a little bit of decline, but I think both of you make a really good point there. We are just kind of in the middle of a holding pattern with the next update of regulations coming in 2 years. So yeah, I'm not, to echo what you guys have said, I'm not too worried, but it is just like an orange flag, just something to keep an eye on. In saying that though, there is some mega star power in this class in terms of driving talent, and Rolex does seem to just pull out this just incredible amount of driving talent from nowhere. We've got some ex-F1 racers, some just from last season. Kevin Magnussen's racing in a car. Marcus Ericsson. Yes, it is right. Marcus Ericsson in a car as well. So we've got some NASCAR drivers. I think last year's Sprint Cup champion Chase Elliott is in a car as well, alongside... I'm going to get all these names wrong because I don't watch NASCAR. Whereabouts is it? Jimmy Johnson as well. And then some Indy racers, Alex Rossi, who won the 100th Indy 500, and Sebastian Bourdais, who's been racing every single sports car he can get his hand on since jumping out of Indy cars. And then, of course, our favourite WEC and prototype drivers as well, in amongst all our IMSA regulars. So it's a really cool, amalgamation of American motorsports, really, that the Rolex pulls together.
And it really has been, because back when it was a Grand Am race, you still had IndyCar drivers and NASCAR drivers coming together. Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Danica Patrick, I believe Paul Tracy. Basically, the American motorsports world even just stopped just for this one race because it was the only thing on. And also, in the AC/DC frontman, Brian Johnson, raced the Daytona prototype here before.
What?
So it attracts all people, and it's just a great race to have everybody included on.
No, you're kidding. No, that can't be right.
Nope. I think it was for a charity he was promoting, yeah?
Yeah. Drive for a lot. Drive to be alive, or something. It was something like that, yep. And it was number 50 or whatever. Yeah, he lives out in Sarasota.
That's your neck of the woods.
On the Gulf Coast. Yeah, near me, actually.
Far out.
And so he's frequently seen around here.
That ties in very nicely with what we were talking about before the podcast, where we were talking about the song ACVC by Neil Cicierega. We're not going to play that. Look that one up at your own peril, everyone.
I think the thing to mention for DPI this year is just the jumbling of teams, of ownership, of drivers, just new faces, legendary faces. This is a weird all-star, almost IROC-esque kind of lineup that I'm seeing on top to bottom in the DPI field. So just from a personal combo of endurance drivers, or just drivers that aren't used to endurance, and just you're curious to see how they do, it's going to be really exciting to see, even if there isn't what I feel like everybody's so used to at Daytona 24 is you see 17 car, overall fighting for the win class entries. And yeah. I just feel like this feels more like Le Mans, and it's just so much, I think it's not comfortable for people, that because it's just, the DP era, and even before that, there just was so many WSC entries that you could go through, and they just had so many overall potential winners. I think that's what's catching a lot of people off guard here, which honestly, you shouldn't, because man, this is going to be insane. And just with the reliability with these cars too, this isn't really where it's oh, that's going to be a great car to see. Hopefully it'll last. All these cars should last outside the Mazda. So
I like that you qualified that there as well. But it's the same. It's the same questions we ask every year. We ask the same things when Alonso came in to the Daytona 24 after being an F1 driver for a long time. It's how will these drivers deal with the night racing, with the traffic, with the longer stints, with the middle of the night stints, with the tomorrow morning stints. The same questions every year. And I don't think there's really been a driver that has, besides Alonso, of course, because he was mental, who has just come in and stepped in and been immediately comfortable. For the likes of Chase Elliott, for the likes of Kevin Magnussen, who don't have those long stints in sports cars under their belt yet, it could be a point of difference for them. But damn, such an interesting field to get through. There's been a significant amount of reshuffling with the regulars as well. So the the guys from the Penske ordeal, they've all been shuffled around either into other DPI drives or into LMP2 drives. So Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, and Helio Castroneves have all moved to Wayne Taylor Racing. So Ricky's been reunited with his dad once more, but not with his brother, who's still driving, I think, the Corvette, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Van der Zander's moved over to Chip Ganassi. He's alongside Scott Dixon, Marcus Harrison, and Kevin Magnussen as well. Dane Cameron and Olivier Pla and Juan Pablo Montoya have jumped into the Maya Shank Racing Acura. So there's a lot of mix-ups here with all the regular names. And on top of that as well, with the Mazda, their two-car team has been downsized into one all-star car, basically, with Jarvis, Bomarito, and Tinknell. And just looking at the driver lineups, I'd almost say that's the strongest car in the field.
I mean, the crazy part is looking at each one, and you can make a case for them.
Yeah,
and we say
absolutely.
it a lot, and that's so cliche, but like the amount of talent on all these, and it's literally down to either how the setup is or just the chassis. So you got to give the nod a little bit to Cadillac, but the Acuras have been fast here, and Mazda has been too. But again, for 24 hours, we'll see. But it's just like all of these have good storylines. I mean, the only one maybe that I wouldn't want to see is the 10 to win. But like even so, it's just because they've won a lot, and I would still like to see the storyline of them win. So I think there's nothing but a really interesting twist to this. No matter who wins, I feel like, and just with the driver lineups alone, I feel like that's just so much storylines to run through it anyway. So yeah. I'm really happy that we see a lot. Because we've had a few years where we really just have had some gentleman drivers entries, we'll just say, in DPI, and this is not that.
Not that, exactly. We got Johan in the chat saying DPI is the most RNG class of them all. Wait until GTD, my friend. Wait until GTD. We'll just quickly go through the drivers of each car, just to sort of give you a bit of an idea of who's where. So go through the Cadillacs first. Chip Ganassi Racing back with their steel grey machine. They got Van der Zander, Dixon, Ericsson, and Magnussen in the 01, the return of the 01. They're going up against Vautier, Bourdais, and Loic Duval in the Cadillac DPI. Duval back in a prototype for a full season, I think, as well, in the JDC Miller Motorsports Mustang sampling car. That's going to be someone to watch. An all-French car, actually, looking at the entry list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got all the familiar faces in the number 31 Action Express car. Felipe Nasser, Pipo Derani, and Mike Conway, joined by Chase Elliott. So that's going to be a very, very big car to watch.
And the thing to note that when the NASCAR Cup Series went to the Daytona Road Course last year, albeit a little bit different course with the chicane after the end of NASCAR Turn 4, Chase Elliott won that race. So he has experience at the track. It's just a prototype he needs to get used to.
Yeah, and I read in Ryan Kisher's amazing article that he won something like 5 races last year. He won... How many races last year? He won 11 races last year, and 5 of them were road courses. So he has significant experience at road courses, it seems. So he is able to turn right or left, whichever one's the one that's wrong in America. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how he goes in a prototype and passing traffic and etc. etc. The last Cadillac on the list is the Ali Cadillac Racing, the second Action Express car. With just for Daytona, with Jimmy Johnson, Kamui Kobayashi, Simon Pagenaud, and Mike Rockenfeller, or the former Audi LMP1 driver from way back in the day.
And I want to say that this isn't Jimmy Johnson's first Rolex. He actually competed here 6-7 times before, and with the Daytona prototypes, and his best finish was second. And he even competed for 4 years with the Gainesville Bob Stallings team. So he raced with high-end teams before in this race. Yeah, so it's certainly no stranger to the banking of Daytona on that one. So just looking at the Cadillacs in isolations, guys, which one do you reckon is going to be the strongest? Remember, in here we have Formula One talent, NASCAR talent, WEC talent, LMP1 talent, DPI talent, and other talent as well. Looking at you... Dixon, for your... He's got GT3 talent as well. He raced at Bathurst last year.
Yeah.
What do you reckon? Give us your top caddy.
I would love for the 60 to win. Like, I would
That's not even a caddy. I just said focus on the caddies. God damn it.
Well, I know. I'm just saying. I want the 60 to win. That's like my heart. That's where my heart's at. But if I'm going to choose, it's going to be a caddy, obviously, and I'm going to probably say the 01.
01? You're going to go Chip Ganassi in his return to racing?
Yeah.
Far out. Okay.
Yeah, they'll have, it's back to back for the Roar, so it's not as much where you can do a bunch of data offset, but like it's Cadillac. They'll give them enough data, and it's Chip Ganassi. I feel like, and again, their driver lineup is just stupid.
You can say that again.
I mean, it's either that or it would be maybe the 31. Because Chase is really, really, really good on the road. Pippo is just Pippo.
Yeah.
Mike Conway is Mike Conway, and Nazar is really fast. So that would probably be my other one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I reckon because of the continuity in that car, the fact that 3 of those 4 drivers were racing in that car last year, I reckon that one's the pick for me. Chris, what about you?
I'm going to go with the 48, mainly because Jimmy Johnson's previous experience. He's not new to prototypes, and he knows the track. And also Kamui Kobayashi, Mike Rockenfeller, LMP1 drivers can't hard to beat. It's really hard to beat that. And also Simon Pagenaud, before he went to IndyCar, was an American Le Mans Series LMP2 champion. So lots of experience in this car. So that's going to be my pick for the caddies and the overall win.
Oh wow, committing early. Okay, let's quickly talk about the rest of the class because we've got a lot to get through still. We have 2 Acuras. The Wayne Taylor Racing jumping over to an Acura. Again, their beautiful black and blue Konica Minolta scheme on that ARX 05. They've had a tumultuous prep for this race, only getting the Penske Acuras very late on the piece, and apparently everything was at the very end of its life, so they basically had to build new cars in order to get them together. So as we made mention, Ricky Taylor back in the Wayne Taylor garage, Albuquerque and Rossi jumping in, and Castro Neves for the endurance races. The other Acura, as Cookie mentioned, is the number 60, the Meyershank Racing, with Curb Agajajajajajajajan, with Pla, Almendinger, Dane Cameron, and Juan Pablo Montoya, jumping in just for the Enduros. And then the Mazda, of course, we mentioned Jarvis Bomarito and Tinknell. Surprised to see no Tristan Nunez in that Mazda, but we'll catch up with him a little later on. How do you rate these guys' chances? Cookie, you mentioned you wanted to see the 60 win. How much do you reckon that is on the cards? Do you reckon they can overpower the Cadillac Brigade?
They seem to have issues the last few times when they were at Daytona. With some actual mechanical problems. So I feel like that's more of a little bit of a thing that gets swept under the rug a bit just because Mazda just seems to be more spectacular with their issues. So I think that's already an uphill. I feel like, as I say, Cadillac or Chip Ganassi stepping into a Cadillac, outfit and basically winning it overall, it might be a little bit boastful a bit or bold, but I don't think so just from like the size of that company, and they're just the amount of just experience they've had running even 2 cars in DP. So Meyershank's done it before, but it's just such a smaller operation. So I feel like there's probably going to need a little bit more potentially get up to speed with that Acura than maybe Chip Ganassi does. The lineup is great. It's fantastic, and also I want to see AJ Allmendinger win it. I'd love to see JPM win it again and all that stuff. But I just think it's gonna be tough for me to see Acuras take it overall. And I would almost want to take the nod to the 10 over the 60 to potentially do that. But I still, I would love the 60 to win. So that's my heart pick.
Yeah, so you made a good point there. The fact that they've only got the cars very late on the piece means that they haven't had the opportunity to do like the proper prep and testing that you would want. Whereas for most of the Cadillac runners, they've had these cars since last year's and they know them very intimately. So they are fighting an uphill battle. Chris, you mentioned number 48 for the overall. Of the other cars, what do you reckon the Acuras and the Mazda, who do you reckon places next?
I really do like the 60 because, Olivier Pla and Dane, all these guys very experienced. Juan Pablo Montoya and AJ Allmendinger, former winners of the event. And it's nice, and also heartfelt story here. AJ Allmendinger won this race in 2012 with the same team that he's going to be running this weekend. So that's going to be nice, the little home for the AJ Allmendinger guy, and also he's going to be racing at Daytona, I believe, in the road course in the 16 Cup car. So this is just kind of experience to try to get back into his NASCAR winning ways in the Cup Series.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. So yeah, there's your 7-car DPI field. I'm picking the 31. I think the 31. If Chase Elliott can get up to speed in that car should just be unbelievable. Because just look at those drivers. Look at those drivers. It's incredible.
Yeah, seriously. Like, and Chase would be the weak point, and from what he's done in NASCAR on that, I have no doubts he's going to be up to speed very quickly. He'll be very fast. So
absolutely,
and I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be like he might not beat Pippo, but he certainly might beat Conway and Nazar on the timesheets, depending on. Hey, man, I'm telling you, like the NASCAR drivers still surprise me with some of that stuff where they're just like, okay, I thought they were not that fast, but they are that fast. And I mean, I feel like we got a little bit miffed a bit with Jeff Gordon because he was definitely in the twilight of his career, and I don't think he was ever used to that kind of stuff. Again, Chase just seems like he's wired right now for road course racing, and this would probably suit him pretty well. So I like I said, I think that 31 is super, super good, but still giving the nod to 01.
still looking for that Chip Ganassi. Fair enough.
Yeah. And also they have the driver ratings right next to the name, and take a look at the two NASCAR drivers, Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott, platinum.
Both platinums, exactly. So they immediately stick out as some high quality drivers there. So we'll leave DPI for now, and we'll go to the other pro class, GT Le Mans, which is a little uncertain, undersubscribed at the moment. But I definitely don't think you can call it uninteresting, especially not for Daytona, because we have a 6-car field with, we talk about the bad news first. 6 cars might not be as strong as it has been in the past. 4 cars for the full season is also a little, 4 or 3 maybe even for the full season, so we're a little unsure about that.
It's only going to be 3.
Only 3? Okay, so we'll lose half of this class come the round after Sebring. But
this looks like a Le Mans lineup too. There's just like
it's just crazy cars left, right, and center. We're almost going to go back to the days of Corvette racing themselves in this class pretty soon, which is something that's definitely not unfamiliar to people who've been watching American Le Mans Series or IMSA or whatever in the past. But in this class at the moment for Daytona and for Sebring at least, we have 2 cars from Corvette, 2 of the brand new C8Rs in their second season, 2 cars from BMW, the big M8s in the twilight of their runtime, and a Risi Ferrari and a WeatherTech Racing Proton Porsche. So how do we feel about that 6-car entry list just on the strength of that, those taglines there? Cookie.
Cliche everything about people's complaints about GTE and GTLM for the last almost decade. So I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. The 3 and 4 are, I feel so bad. I kind of feel bad for Corvette because I feel like they just haven't really had a good peg of that car yet, and I just feel like it's very, very good. Like it's just really good, and now they almost don't
champions. They're GTLM champions, Cookie. How do you feel bad for them? They haven't got a peg on that car. They're champions.
I know, but I mean, just in terms of where to sit that car, it's kind of the same thing of like, where we see Toyota, Audi, Porsche versus Toyota versus privateers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's that kind of deal. Because I do feel like the M8 is not on the same caliber as the C8. And then the Rizzi, probably the 488 could definitely challenge it, at least for right now. But I don't know how Rizzi does it because it's Rizzi. They might have a decent car set up there, but it probably isn't along the same lines as they have Corsa. And then WeatherTech Racing is just, whatever. I don't know. But I don't know. I just feel like they deserve to have competition in this class. And it's a bummer to see Porsche, back, especially with how terrible their season was last year.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
It hurts my heart still. Chris, what are your thoughts? Do you reckon we're going to see an interesting race in GTLM even with just the 6 cars?
All depends on what the BOP stage like, really, because we could see a great, fantastic race. I remember a couple of years back when they just had the GT Le Mans guys all nose to tail, pretty much the entire field. We had like 7 or 8 cars. Or it could be like years past when, one manufacturer could just kind of be like running away with it, and the rest could be fighting for scraps. It's all good. It's just just have to wait and see. We got the qualifying race on Sunday, so we get to see them in race action,
and that's this Sunday. That's tomorrow. Well, for me, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
So
36 hours time.
And if you check your Racing Line app, you'll be able to convert that into your own time zone and get notified for it.
Yeah, it's not actually 36 hours. Just use the app.
And if you're listening on the week of Rolex, it'll most likely be on the IMSA YouTube channel to watch before the big race.
Nice. So let's crack into this field. We'll talk about each of these the teams in isolation first before combining it all together. So let's talk about Corvette. They are the only full season factory effort for this year, running the new C8R. They managed to get through Rolex last year pretty unscathed, if my memory serves me correctly. So they've obviously got a car built for endurance racing in that C8. And with the two driver lineups, there's not really too many big changes. I think the biggest change is Oliver Gavin stepping down from a full season drive, and replacing Mr. Gavin in that car is a name very familiar to this podcast, Nick Tandy. Jumping from the Porsche program. So Nick Tandy's going to be in the number 4. And they've also picked up BMW refugees, Nicky Katzberg and Alexander Sims. I think that's the biggest storyline in Corvette's books, especially for fans of Nick Tandy.
And the news that the looming LMDH program that's coming for Porsche too. It seems odd to have him, jump ship essentially to Corvette, and I mean that's a manufacturer shift, and it's not kind of like it's I'm going to go to BMW or Risi and kind of ride this out for a couple of years until Porsche starts needing me for testing and stuff. This seems like it's an actual shift to Corvette. So, but yeah, so I mean that was, and again I almost kind of want to think that it was interesting to not see more of the ex core Porsche drivers finding kind of GTLM spots or anything like that. But again, that just might be for how that's working out with the internal stuff of Porsche. So, but yeah, I think that was a huge boom for Corvette. I think getting Nick Tandy, he's a fantastic GT Porsche driver.
He's come a long way since that 2015 Daytona where, what was it, Bill Oberlin called him, what did he call him? He's just absolutely ripped into him for 20 seconds on an interview.
Oh yeah, that's on our
YouTube channel. Yeah,
but yeah, he called him. Oh man, yeah, he called him like a more absolute moron or something like that. I think that was also that's just the same year that he won overall petite,
and the same year he won at Le Mans. That was his breakout year.
Maybe it was Bill Oberlin's harsh tone on the airwaves that sent Nick Tandy into a rage and decided to just win everything. So that's why it's just anything he does, and again, he's been involved in some contact incidents and stuff, and all the Porsches be little argy bargy. But it's, I don't know. I feel like they make up for it with just the talent and the wins. So
absolutely.
I don't know. Yeah, good get for Corvette.
Absolutely. Chris, what about Katzberg and Sims, two refugees from the BMW program? How do you reckon they're going to integrate into the Corvette?
Well, I mean, the good news is obviously we get the Roar, and then they have a qualifying race to get themselves affiliated with the car if they're going to run the qualifying race themselves. But if they do run the qualifying race, it should give them some good experience to know what in race trim and what the car is going to look like. Especially with a 6-car grid, and that might not be the worst idea to put at least one of them in the car, because I believe only 2 drivers will do the race with the driver change in the middle. So, especially with the Roar, it's going to help them, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference because the Corvette, obviously, as we saw last year, winning the IMSA championship, I mean, the car, very, very good. The drivers just need to put it on the tarmac.
Yeah, and as Johan has mentioned in the chat, Katzberg has already done a season with the Corvette. It is a bit interesting, though, that they're going from the big front-engined M8 to the mid-engine Corvette. That might be a little bit of a point of difference for them to get a hand around. But for Tandy, he's going from the rear-engine Porsche into the Corvette. So interesting times at Corvette racing. We'll talk about the prancing horse next, Risi Competizione. Back in the saddle again for the endurance rounds. Running the 488 GTE, of course, and going to be painted up in beautiful Testarossa red, as it always is. A pretty unsurprising driving lineup. It's a mix of all of the greatest, best factory drivers from Ferrari, and a few drivers that have already raced with Risi either at Le Mans or in other IMSA rounds. Pierre Guidi, Davide Rigon, James Collado from the AF Corsa stable, and Jules Gounon, who has been making waves over the past 12 months with his efforts at the Bathurst 12 Hour particularly, but also ran that car at Le Mans. Is Risi a serious competitor? Can you call Risi a serious competitor if he's just coming in for the endurance rounds as a privateer in the Ferrari that's kind of under-supported? Can you say that he's a proper competitor? You guys both chimed in at exactly the same time again.
I know, it's awful. We just have the same timing. I'm just going to keep going first. Yes, I think they should be considered a serious competitor. He has the experience for it. It is a car that is not falling apart, so it runs, and it's a 24-hour race. There are only 6 entries in the class. Yes, they probably, they don't have the right, I would say, equipment to compete for the class win. But again, as soon as we say, well, you shouldn't count them out because there's no reliability issues, there's going to be reliability issues, and they're going to sneak up into a podium or win it. So, no, I would say that it's not likely that they're going to have any form. I don't think they're going to have any success in this race, just from what I can see from Corvette. I just think they're just too good. But hey, they could get some favorable BOP and stuff can fall their way and you can easily get a podium. So, there's only 6 cars in the class. That's all I can say. So if there's like 20, I would definitely be a little bit more concerned in terms of like, are they a contender? No. Yeah. But with this, they have to be considered just for the few amount of entries.
And Chris, how important is it to have Risi on the grid? Is it something that you feel is missing if they're not there?
Yeah, because they've been in the American Le Mans series for such a long time. The Ferrari GTE is such a good car. I like it a lot, and it's just only having BMW and Corvette than the one Porsche. Especially with the full season round, like with only Corvette in the one lone Porsche, it's nice to have that variety of the grid. So I think the Ferrari, especially having it as a GTE, really adds it to the race.
Yeah, great point. Let's talk about those drivers real quickly. Pierre Guidi, Rigon, Collado. That's basically lifted straight from their WEC car. In fact, that almost is the 51 from Le Mans. The only change is Rigon coming into that car. And Jules Gounon, who's raced with a few Ferraris before. How quickly do you reckon he'll be able to settle in that car for the Daytona race? Chris first.
I mean, Gounon, he has success in quite a lot of cars. I mean, I believe he once again won the ADAC GT Masters champion in a Corvette GT3. I believe he might have. I don't know if he won a race with Bentley, but he had some good results with Bentley.
He won the 12 hour with Bentley, Bathurst. He drove that last stint,
right.
Actually.
So a major 12-hour Bathurst win with Bentley, a major GT championship with Corvette. The guy, anything he drives, he pretty much comes off with a major result. Now, is Daytona going to be that one for Ferrari? We'll just have to wait and see.
That would be a great boon for him to pick that one up, especially with this team. We'll jump over to what has been one of the most interesting parts of the GTLM class, the WeatherTech racing effort for Porsche. And this is, if you're familiar with IMSA Championship, this is Cooper McNeil and the McNeil family throwing money at IMSA in order to give them a car and some good results. So Cooper McNeil, silver rated driver, jumping into the GT Le Mans class. I will straight off the bat say I hate how good the car looks. I want to dislike this car just on principle, but the car looks awesome. And I think it was Groom Brother 1 who commented in the reveal thread that it looked like a cross between... I'm going to have to find this comment and tell you about it. Please hold. Anyway, the car looks beautiful and brilliant, and interesting driver lineup for the full season particularly, but we'll talk about it for the moment here. It's got Cooper McNeil, of course, as well as Jimmy Bruni, Richard Leitz, and Kevin Est. So Porsche pulling out all the stops, even though they don't have a factory team anymore.
Yeah, so I was saying the core stuff earlier, so clearly I'm mistaken.
This is where they've all ended
here's
up.
a majority of them, yeah, and then Nick went and jumped ship. So no, this will be an interesting lineup if it wasn't for Cooper. So it's just going to be what's his pace going to be in a GTE car, and I mean it was okay in GTDs, but again he's going to be pegged against pros, and this is going to be tough. So how much of the stint, like what he has to do, what's his minimums, 4?
I think if this was an ACO competition, it would be 4. However, I'm not sure on the IMSA rules. I think they put it up to 2 after, was it Ed Brown won both Rolex and Sebring doing 1 lap in each?
Yeah, that was right. So, yeah, because they did do that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if he can get his stuff out of the way early and not get too far behind, then they definitely have a shot. But it's, I feel like Cooper's going to be driving more than they're going to be able to maintain in terms of the other guys, unless they get some favorable safety cars and full course yellows.
And we know that at Rolex, in IMSA competition, that is a massive difference from what we see in the ACO regulations with the wave around and the extended pit sequence and all that sort of stuff. Kris, this car is going to have a basically revolving door of Porsche factory drivers throughout the season supporting McNeil. Do you think that might impact the sort of continuity in the car? Do you think that might change the sort of unsettle the car throughout the season, having all those different drivers through it?
It's sort of like a sitcom with like a special guest each week. It's like
that is a great way to do it.
But I think this is actually a Proton car, so let's not forget about that. It's still decent equipment. It's just the only factor that we have to worry about is Cooper McNeil. But I think with the other 3 Porsche factory drivers, because we've seen Cooper McNeil win races in IMSA before, I believe, 1 or 2 of them, and he had decent lineups. So we'll just have to wait and see. I believe the first session of the Roar happened today. We can get some timing up on that. If Cooper McNeil drove the car, see if we can find that out. But we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, with a huge classic GT Le Mans, with pretty much all pro drivers in the cars he's facing, it's going to be a tough ask, but I think it's doable.
And for me, the thing I'm most happy about is the opportunity to hear that absolutely roaring flat 6 pierce everyone's eardrums as it powers around the banking of Daytona once again. That's going to be the best. And it looks beautiful. I did end up finding that comment. Grim Brother 1 said, it gives me late 90s Orica vibes with a dash of the Mobil 1 GT1 car. And oh boy, he nailed it in one. I just posted it in the chat, and it is a gorgeous looking machine, and I love it. I love it so much. Moving on to the BMW, the last pair of cars in this class. We're going to whiz through this as quickly as we can because we're already running behind. Big M8's last hurrah, perhaps. 24, John Edwards, Jesse Krohn, Augusto Farfus, and Marco Wittmann. 25, Di Filippi Eng, Bruno Spengler, and from the heavens, Timo Glock. Is that Glock? Yes, indeed, it is. So it's all the regular BMW drivers and also Timo Glock, which is kind of terrifying.
DTM.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Sorry, that's like one series that I don't follow. Prepares for downvotes.
Yeah, well, and it's just going through an entire thing. So that's where he's coming from. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm curious to see where BMW goes with this. I feel like because of where I think even Corvette were saying that they're looking at LMDH and or GTD, that a lot of this for their new car will be focused on GTD until maybe there's a solution or they do something to make that platform pro in a certain way. So I do feel that maybe they keep the car going until then, or they would stop. I don't know. They just seem like they have enough. There's still enough interest from BMW, and it's weird to say because I feel like 5, 6, 7 years ago we would be like, BMW's like the cowards, damn it, they backed out. But this one is where I don't know. I feel like they have a lot of weird investment into this. They bought in hard with the online racing and stuff during COVID. You know, they've obviously had some success with this car at Daytona, and they know how to win with it. So it's just, and they're having a new platform for GT3. So it seems like they want to stay endurance racing, prototype racing. So I guess the thing is, like, I feel like, yeah, we will see this might be the swan song, but I still feel like BMW is still going to want to try to compete in a pro level here and whatever they're going to do next.
Yeah,
even though they don't have a GTE car coming up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird mixed bag because, you know, they went hard in with IMSA and with WEC for that, like, one season, then bailed out of WEC, and IMSA's been reduced to a endurance racing only sort of deal. It's kind of like, are they committing or are they not committing? They're just kind of sitting on the fence at the moment. Yeah, Johan's just summed it up perfectly. We really do, but we really don't as well. That kind of sums up the whole BMW program with the GTE. For me, the biggest loss from this program has been Chaz Mostert, who won last year in the M8. Of course, his ties with the BMW factory have come to an end during last year's extended closure. But you can't really say that there's any surprises in any of those cars. It is just kind of the BMWs. There they are. They're just kind of there. At least that's what I think about it. Chris, what are your thoughts?
If the car has pace, they're gonna do well.
Yeah.
If the car has pace, they'll do well. But it doesn't seem like it's one of those where, like, a driver is gonna overdrive the car and make it perform better. It just seems like if the BMWs are catching you, they're gonna catch you and pass you and start leaving you. Like, it's either they have it or they don't, and it's interesting.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts?
I think the BMWs are just gonna fight closely. I'm gonna say it's gonna be between BMW versus Corvette, because BMW has won last year, and Corvette obviously last year's IMSA champions. Ferrari obviously only racing 1 or 2 races in a year. The BOP might not be too favorable for them, and then the Porsche is Cooper McNeil. So the other two, Ferrari and Porsche, have a bit of handicaps there. While BMW and Corvette, I think the BOP is going to be more in their favor. But I do think ultimately, I think the BMW has the. I'm gonna say it. BMW has the stronger lineup.
Ooh.
I think that I think the 25. I'm really eyeing up that car. I think the 25 might take it.
Ooh, that is a big call.
25 too.
What? I'm going to go number 4. I reckon Milner, Tandy, and Sims is a better car and in a more proven platform in a factory-supported outfit. But, okay, you guys can do whatever.
It's a better car, but the BMW is just it's a big mate. So it just seems like it's a faster platform in general. Like, they won, Corvette won the short race, but the BMW, I think they won that off of like a fuel strategy.
Yeah, BMW
was,
won last year on a fuel strategy, and they won the year before with Farfus doing an absolute, incredible drive in the pissing down conditions as well.
No, I meant Corvette, the short race, the first race back from IMSA. I think Corvette won that one. But, BMW was way better, and it just was Corvette winning it off of a pit strategy that won it. So that's what I'm saying. I feel like they just, for some reason, just have a good pace there, and I feel like that's what counts. Obviously, like, talk to Cadillac about that. So
yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's GT Le Mans. We'll see exactly, Cookie. We'll see what happens. I'll just quickly mention the results of the first session. It was actually the Risi car that was the fastest at the hands of James Collado, and then it was Corvette and then BMW. So a bit of a mixed bag there for the group, and it was the Porsche who was the slowest of the GTLM cars who made it out, because one of the Corvettes didn't. So we'll see more over this weekend as the times come in, but that's where it stands at the moment. Let's push on. We have 3 classes still to get through, and the first one for me is surprising because it's an actual class now. LMP2 has an actual number of entries. 10 cars. This is the most subscribed LMP2 has been in IMSA competition since friggin' the 2017 regulations, where they actually had a decent amount of cars that could challenge for overall wins. It's kind of surprising, and I love it. 10 entries across local and international teams. So we've got a few of our favorite teams from the ELMS and the WEC. IMSA regulars include Tower Starworks at the hands of John Ferrano et al. PR1 Mathiasen, Dragon Speed coming in with 2 cars. ERA Motorsports jumping in with their effort, which is Dwight Merriman. I think that's one of the teams from last year. And then 2 new teams for IMSA, Win Autosports, what a name, and Rickware Racing, partnering with Eurasia, taking them over from the Asian Le Mans series to jump in. And then 3 cars from the ELMS or the WEC, High Class Racing, Racing Team Netherlands, and Settler Racing, or Settler Motorsport? One of them, Settler something. I'm such a great presenter, aren't I? Settler Racing. So the only Delara on the grid there as well. And guys, it's actually a real class. It's not just there. It's there's something to fight for in this class now.
I mean, fight for second, like
Oof.
that 29 car is terrifying. That is definitely an accurate statement. Oh my god, like that's like the normal lineup that would pretty much win them a WC title.
Yeah, so for those playing along at home, 29 is the Racing Team Netherlands car, and I guess we'll start there because you've already mentioned it. Fritz van Aert as the bronze in that car, when we all know Fritz from his exploits in WEC. Silver, Charles Malesi, who I think was one of the most underrated drives of Le Mans last year in the Graf car, a 19-year-old from, I think, German Formula 3. And then the 2 terrifyingly big names, Job van Uitert and Guido van der Garde. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. I mean, they would be my immediate favorites for this. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be fun, but like that is such a huge lineup. So yeah. I'm just happy that this is in LMP2 for some reason, racing at Rolex. Like I don't quite understand why this powerful of a lineup is racing in the Rolex LMP2 category, but it makes sense. And again, this is what IMSA was trying to do. They wanted to get these guys that show up to just dominate races, like marquee races. They showed up to this one, so let's see if they do it. So
yeah, absolutely,
that's good. That's an awesome international talent, like in terms of just from like outside of IMSA perspective to compete. Like that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, and just to close off a loop here, driver regulations for this class must include 1 bronze and 1 silver, so you have freedom outside of that. And boy, when you add, well, I mean, Malesi's a fake silver. He's not a silver driver. He's another friggin' Mikkel Jensen type. Or Job van Uitert type. He's a liar. He's a phony.
Yeah. Great big phony.
Yeah, so that car is going to be terrifying. Let's talk about the other cars coming in from international lines. So High Class Racing jumping in with Anders Fjordback, as we would have expected. Dennis Anderson in that car as well. And then I did see the TBD has been updated with Ferdinand Habsburg and Robert Kubica driving in that car for High Class Racing. His first drive in a prototype, I think, for a little while. That's a pretty decent car to come across the pond as well. Chris, you're awfully quiet. What are your opinions on the 2 cars we've heard so far?
To 29, I'm going to say it's stacked. In the
Stacks, there
High
it is.
Class Racing car. And High Class Racing. Interesting because they did do some good stints in the European Le Mans series. I remember them doing sort of well. Having Ferdinand Habsburg definitely helps, and Robert Kubica. Interesting to see what he can do in the prototype. I don't know if he actually raced prototypes before. I can't remember any instances off the top of my head. This might be his first time in a prototype. I might be wrong.
Yeah, neither do I.
But one thing's for sure, LMP2, it's actually interesting.
It is actually interesting. Well,
That's a great point.
well, okay. Well, let's go for a more general look because there's just an absolute glut of drivers we need to talk about here. So Gabriel Aubry's in this class. He's in the number 8 Tower Motorsports alongside Matteo Vaxiviere. So that's John Ferrano, Vaxiviere, Tim Buret, and Gabriel Aubry. That's a terrifying driver lineup. As long as the car doesn't light on fire like it did at the Bend a good year ago now. Paul-Loup Chatin is in this class alongside Ryan Diel, Kyle Tilley, and Dwight Merriman. That's the ERA Motorsport car. Very good looking car, actually. They've they had a 6-year-old design the livery for that car, and they've actually done quite a good adaptation of the crayon sort of look that was submitted. So I quite like how far they've gone to get that car together. That's of course a car that was run as the IDEC car over at Le Mans. So that's a pretty good return for them after all their problems at Le Mans. So that's very, very cool. But like you got, okay, I want to jump around a bit here because I want to talk about the number 52 car.
Yeah.
PO1 Mathiasen Motorsports. So this is Ben Keating in a prototype, alongside Scott Huffaker, who I have no idea. Scott Huffaker, any ideas?
Don't think so.
Wow. Chris, what happened to you? You used to be so obscure.
I have a job!
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see if Ryan Kish has anything to say. 20-year-old American, raced in Pacific F2000, and PO1 Mathiasen LMP3 driver in the Prototype Challenge Series last year. So there you go. There's a little bit on Scott. Now, let's have a look at these two other drivers in this car. Mikkel Jensen, who, as we've mentioned, is a fake silver, and
Yikes.
Nicolas Lapierre.
Yikes.
Big yikes. That's terrifying.
So 52 gets pole, but then 29 wins.
Is that what you're saying?
Is that what we're saying?
I'm not saying that. I reckon.
I think we should collectively say that. I feel like that's what's going to happen. So I feel like we should just collectively all agree to that right now. Right?
Nah,
Okay.
Guido van der Garde, though. How is he not taking pole?
Because Lapierre.
I mean, that's a very good point. But also,
Yeah.
It's such.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
The man is a pole meister. He's like the only thing he knows how to do is like qualify first. I don't get it. But I've bought into it. You know,
You bought into it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you.
I'm invested.
Just quickly on the number 52 car. Awesome looking livery. With the wings, purple and orange. That's really, really cool. That's all I had to say on that. That driver lineup is insane. Like, for those who I reckon Ben Keating might be top 3 bronze drivers of all time in the world at the moment. Mikkel Jensen, for those who didn't watch Le Mans or the ELMS or WC last year, in the G-Drive car, acted more professional than the professionals in that car. I remember we somehow managed to get his the G-Drive's radio communications through FP1 at Le Mans last year. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but that was what was being broadcast on one of the onboard streams. And the way that he talked about the car and the traffic and the feedback he was giving to engineers was just out of this world. It was fascinating to listen to, and he has the pace to match up with all of the data that he's giving back. So the fact that he's a silver is a lie, basically. He's definitely not a silver. It's just incredible. So keep your eyes on Mikkel Jensen and on Charles Malesi for that matter. And there will be 2 drivers with incredible careers to come. Anyone else that sticks out as a contender, really? I mean, go ahead, Chris.
I mean, take a look at the 82. It may not be a good. I mean, Fabian Schiller, Christopher Mies, Devlin DeFrancesco, and the only probably the weak link in that car is Eric Lux, the bronze, who probably brings some money to the team. But I believe Devlin DeFrancesco was supposed to race over in Formula 3 last year, but he couldn't do it because of COVID. I believe he was on the Road to Indy ladder. Then Christopher Mies, well, he doesn't need any explanation. Then they have Fabian Schiller, who's been racing with the ACO prototypes for a while now.
And also with Mercedes AMG, he's a factory driver that's raced at Spa and Nürburgring.
That's right.
Yeah. So he's definitely got quality. I'm trying to look at DiFrancesco. Yeah, he was on the Indy Lights track. So it's good. You haven't completely lost your obscure motorsport knowledge, Chris. It's good to see.
51's an interesting entry as well. If we're just looking at the list here too, it's a Ligier, so at least we got a different chassis there. The Eurasia entry, so it has Matthew Jaminet, Austin Dillon, NASCAR driver, Sully Uluk. I don't know.
Sully Uluk.
Do I know him?
Yes, you do know
Sully
him.
Uluk.
He is the TF Sport bronze driver that has been the first Turkish
that's
driver to race
right.
at Le Mans and the first Turkish driver to win a class at Le Mans.
Okay, yeah. So he actually is a pretty decent, I would say, bronze.
Yep.
And Cody Ware, who I don't know. I mean, I know him, but like he's just that's Cody Ware. Question mark. It's the Wares. So.
NASCAR Cup Series backmarker, and I also Asian Le Mans Series. I think he was a champion.
Yeah, that was champion.
Yep. And
because everyone else burned down.
So that car could definitely podium.
And there's rumors that he might do IndyCar this year.
Oh, that must be terrifying.
Oh, wow, okay. We
have Johan in the chat saying that the Rick Ware Eurasia lineup is incredibly random. Yeah, it is. It's all over the place. Like Matteo Jaminet in that car as well, as in Porsche young driver Matteo Jaminet. Like, what? It is just all over the place. Good note there that we've got a Ligier on the field as well. So that's really, really cool. We've also got a Dallara. I mentioned Cetilar Racing. So that is the swan song for the Dallara. They, after this race, will be retiring that chassis and moving into GTM in a Ferrari in the WEC. So this is quite possibly the last race we'll see a LMP2 Dallara for this regulation cycle, which is a little sad because I think the Dallara is the most aesthetically pleasing of all the LMP2 chassis. And obviously no one else feels strongly about it because no one else is saying anything.
It's still LMP Eureka for LMP2, but it's good to see Cetilar with their Dallara, their trusty Dallara. I feel like we should just give them like I wish they could earn a win, a well-deserved win, because they just keep parading the ACO's LMP2 class to not die, the painful Eureka death that it's supposed to. They just won't retire that car, and it's awesome, and I love that. So, and also it ties a little bit into the iRacing 24 too, with their Dallara chassis being the one in the game. So there you go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's it actually came out a few months ago. So
there you go.
LMP2s are insane. We dive bomb too much, but it's good to see three chassis in here again, and at least look, I mean, it's not what the ACO wanted, but hey, they're surviving pretty much all the way to their end life with with these set of regs. So cheers to that. And
this is just as an aside, the debut for the Dallara LMP 217 that is not a Cadillac at Le Mans. At Daytona, sorry. We haven't mentioned Win Autosport, new team put together by, I think it's Stephen Thomas, is, if I remember correctly. That is where the Mazda refugee Nunez, Tristan Nunez, has ended up. A bit of a weird one there. Stephen Thomas racing IMSA Prototype Challenge, and he's brought with him Tristan Nunez, Thomas Merrill, who I have no idea about, and Matt Bell, and I think that is that's the 2020 Prototype Challenge champion. So that's a pretty interesting pickup for that team.
And Thomas Merrill raced the Trans Am 2 class.
Okay, so let's not expect too much from them then. I mean, like, it's cool that they've got Matt Bell and Tristan Nunez, but like, if you're running two bronzes in this class, you're not gonna get anywhere. I think is pretty clear to say. Would that be a fair statement? Actually,
Thomas Merrill raced in the 2010 24 Hours Daytona in a BMW M6.
Oh God, that's a long time ago. Any hope for this team though?
Doubt.
Press X to doubt. Okay, we'll just move straight on. I think The only cars we haven't touched on yet are we mentioned the ERA Motorsport car that has Kyle Tilley and Dwight Merriman as the AMs. They're coming on from last season. I think ERA Motorsport were racing last season in LMP2, so at least they have familiarity with the car in America. They've got Ryan DL and Paul-Luc Chatin. I think Chatin's a good pickup for them, but I'm not really expecting too much from them in this field. And the second of the Dragon Speed cars as well, Rob Hodes and Garrett Grist, again, IMSA drivers from last year. And they've got Rinus VK, who is a Dutch driver who I've never heard of before, who was gold rated somehow, and then Ben Hanley in that car. So who is this VK guy? Any ideas?
Rinus VK, he came up the road to Indy ladder pretty quick. I don't know if he won the Indy Lights Championship or not, but he also did a full season of the Formula 3 Asian Championship, and he might have won the championship in that. But Rinus VK, very, very accomplished driver, at least in the road to Indy ladder program. He's definitely not. He's definitely a good pickup.
There we go. So it's cool to see these guys coming up through the sports car, or the road to Indy ladder and the sports car ladder into this race. So guys, 10 cars in this class. Give me a top 3. We'll go Cookie first, seeing as you seem to have very strong opinions.
29 and then 52. I'll go then.
It gets a bit muddy after that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just the 47 seems cool. 81 is with Dragon Speed. They've got a bunch of history with that. I'll throw it to 47.
47? So that's the Settler Racing?
47. Yeah, so I'll do 29, 52, 47.
So that's Racing Team Netherlands, the PR1 Mathiasen Motorsports car, and then Settler Racing. Interesting on the Settler Racing. Is that a pick more in hope than in...
It's a little hope,
yeah.
But also just because, like, you know, it's a solid team that has done this before, and it's just a new place. I feel like the way that they can do that too is, you know, and they have a different chassis, so there could be that aspect of it where it's a little bit... you know, that gives them a slight advantage, at least for pace-wise, that they might not have had to get a podium. So
fair enough.
There you go.
What about you, Chris? What are your thoughts? Give us a top 3.
29, 52, 82.
So you've gone again, Racing Team Netherlands and PR1 Mathiasen, and then the second of the Dragon Speed cars, Schiller, Mies, DiFrancesco, and Lux.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. It's interesting to me that Schiller and Mies are from two competing GT3 brands in Mercedes and Audi, and then are combining in a prototype together. I think for the first time as well, for pardon me, for each of them. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. For me, I'm also going to go 29 and 52. There's a bit of a theme here. I want to say the 51. I want that Rick Ware Racing Eurasia car to do well, because it's just all over the place, but I think being in Elysier is going to be their downfall. So I'm actually going to go the Tower Events Starworks car, Forano, Timbure, Gabriel Aubrey, and Matteo Vaxiviere. I reckon the number 8 is going to be one to keep an eye on for those lower places. If it doesn't light on fire. The irony of that happening at the bend with that was such a sad sight to see. But yeah, LMP2, 10 cars. Like, there might actually be some coverage of this class for a change.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true.
I mean, that was at Daytona last year, and they're like, I think there's like 4 or 5 of them, and like every often, like once in a while, you'll see an LMP2 is like, oh yeah, they're in this race. I forgot.
and Johan makes a great point in chat. It's the second largest class for this race. Second largest class. That's something we haven't said for a long time. Let's move on to a new class for the IMSA Championship in 2021, the LMP3 class. We've already made mention that this is the first time that they're going to be properly tested over 24 hours. Driver rating rules means that there's no platinums allowed in this class, and you're only allowed 1 gold driver for endurance round. So it's going to be a very very AM heavy class. We have a 7-car entry, which is a little bit under what I would have, what you would have liked. And I think the driver ratings have played into that a little bit. We're not going to go explicitly into detail with every single driver lineup here, because there's a lot of really, really weird drivers. There's also a young driver class, so there's, if you're looking at the entry list, there's car driver names with under 30 next to them, so that's another thing to keep an eye on as well. But let's talk more broadly. LMP3, so we've seen LMP3, the new LMP3, in both the ELMS last season and the Road to Le Mans. And I'm not sure, did they get them in Prototype Challenge last year as well?
They weren't.
Okay, so this is the debut of the new LMP3 cars in America as well. This is going to be the biggest challenge.
Not technically.
Oh my, yeah, okay, so one of them did a friggin' Thunderhill. That doesn't count. Thunderhill is not a real race.
No. The IMSA Prototype Challenge support race on the Saturday before the qualifying race, that will have the new LMP3s as well.
Oh my god.
You're technically wrong.
Oh, that hasn't even happened yet. At the time of recording, that hasn't even happened. Damn it, Chris.
So wrong.
I mean, you're right, but just, god damn it. You played me. You absolutely played me. I've completely lost my train of thought. God damn it. Where was I going? Yeah, biggest test for the new P3 cars, since they've arrived. Will we see them make it to the end?
Yeah, they'll make it to the end. I feel like there will be definitely some reliability issues, and they'll just, send it into barriers at will. But I definitely think that we'll see somebody finish. I mean, they might be not at ultimate pace for what they should be, but I mean, they're probably going to be, right around GTD pace, I would assume, at the end of the race. So we'll find out.
Well, I guess
it's going to be wild.
Well, I guess roar times over today, as we're recording this, the LMP3s and the GT Le Mans are all mixed together, and the slowest AMs for LMP3 are mixed in with the GTDs. That's gonna be fun. And also, there's also the 8-minute stop stop that the LMP3s have to make for. I believe they do have to have a brake change, so that'll help shuffle them down the order a bit.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a weird one, because we've seen in Road to Le Mans competition, or the Michelin Le Mans Cup competition, that the real advantage of the LMP3 cars is their downforce. So on tracks that are curvy and, downforce heavy, they tend to rise above the GT cars. But when you put them at, like, a Monza or at a Spa-Francorchamps, they really struggle to outpace GT3 cars. And with the heavy AM driver component in these cars, and with the banking and the fact that it's Daytona, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see these cars on the whole finish behind the GTD field.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to be, and just from, even if they're having to nurse some of this stuff too, because it is the first time that they're trying to run these things 24 hours, they might just have a slower pace, even with the golds that are driving it. So we'll see.
Absolutely right. Let's talk a little bit about the cars. We have 5 Ligiers and 2 Ducanes. Now, I'm not sure if this is the case, but remember the Ducanes had a penalty applied to all of the cars that were sold because they did not reach the homologation point in time. So all those cars got a weight penalty. Has that expired now? Has that weight penalty expired for the Ducanes because it's been a season? Does anyone know? Anyone in the chat? Because that... Because however many kilos it is, 10 kilos, 15 kilos, it is definitely a non-zero amount.
Yeah.
As Ollie has argued in the past, it might be the difference between 2 drivers' weights, depending on whether it's an AM or a pro. But yeah, it's definitely non-zero, and we don't have any confirmation from the chat. So yeah, it would be interesting if we get an answer on that.
Otherwise, it would line up, but we don't. I don't think any statement's been made on it.
Yeah, so don't know about that, but still only the 2 chassis that have broken cover at the moment. Or we will see, I think, a Ginetta for the Asian Le Mans series. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But let's talk about some of these drivers. I'm going to pick out the ones that I see. Oh, actually, no. Before we do that, I want to just say I am very, very excited about this class for one reason, and that one reason is the return of Core Autosports. Baby! They're back! John Bennett, Colin Brown, they're back. I love it. 54. I love it.
Yeah, and that's my pick to win the class too. So.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. It's good to see them back after they almost won the overall championship in a P2 car, 3 years ago against full pro lineups.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there might be again, like if we look at some of these drivers, at least just from if you can recognize two of them in a lineup, then you might have there might be some success here. But like, yeah, I mean, I think between the 54 and 74 for me.
Yeah. So
between those two cars.
We'll talk about those two cars real quickly because I reckon they are quite clearly the favorites. Or maybe not quite clearly the favorites, but clearly up there. So the 54, if you remember Core Autosport back from the LMP2 days, you'll remember this lineup of Jonathan Bennett and Colin Brown. They've also got Matt McMurray in that car as well, who I'm pretty sure has done some Prototype Challenge racing or some other car racing enough that I recognize the name to an extent. And also finishing off that driver lineup is George Kurtz, who I've never heard of before. Kris, any idea who George Kurtz is?
He is, if you see the sponsor name, CrowdStrike, that's basically George Kurtz's thing. He's the one that's bringing the CrowdStrike money into the car, bringing the sponsorship. He also raced in GT World Challenge America in the Pro-Am class with the Mercedes, and also competed in several Thunderhill 25 hours.
Nice.
With the Radicals.
With the Radicals? Oh, that's cool. Those Radicals are really, really cool cars, actually. And then the other car that I can immediately pick out some very, very good amateur names is the 74, as Cookie said. Gar Robertson, Spencer Piggott in that car, and then Oliver Askew and Scott Andrews. Any idea on those, Kris?
Yeah, Gar Robinson, Trans Am driver, not new to LMP3s. He raced LMP3s in something called FARA, which is basically like a series that's held at the Homestead Miami Speedway road course. Also, Oliver Askew is a IndyCar driver. He was an IndyCar driver last year for McLaren, Schmidt Peterson Motorsports. I don't think he has that ride this year, but basically kind of IndyCar guy.
Yep.
And then you have Scott Andrews. I want to say he's an Australian.
What? I didn't. Who? Scott Andrews. Are you racing the Asian Le Mans series? There you go.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Huh. I did not really. What is an Australian? Anyway. So that's a car to keep an eye on as well. Now I want to talk about the number 90 car, the second of the Rally Motorsport cars, because that has Dylan Murray and Jim Cox as two of the lower rated drivers, so the two guys I don't really know about. But in that car as well, it has LMP Prototype Challenge champion, I think, for 2019, Austin McCusker, who raced with Inter Europol in the LMP3 car for the Asian Le Mans series. Had a great chat with him at the Bend. And also Jerome Blakemolen in an LMP3 car. What? That should be illegal.
And keep in mind that, going back to 74 real quick, Felipe Fraga was supposed to be driving in that car, but I think it was either Spencer Piggott or Oliver Askew that replaced him because Fraga couldn't travel because of COVID-19 concerns.
Yeah.
But still, not too bad replacements. It's Jerome Blakemolen, obviously big shout. That's the pro driver. Austin McCusker, last year's Prototype Challenge Championship contender, I believe.
Yep.
Jim Cox, judging by the bronze symbol, is going to be the AM for that. And then Dylan Murray, which I would assume is probably, once again, a Prototype Challenge driver from last season. I'll try to get confirmation on that.
Apparently he started out in the NASCAR ladder, did Dylan Murray, before switching over. So, yeah. So, interesting set of drivers in the number 91 car. I'm just going to skip over a lot of these other drivers because I just have absolutely no idea. But I want to talk about a few of the big names that have snuck their way in. So, Gabby Chavez is in the number 747 Motorsports car. He's driving alongside Mark Vam, which we have seen in IMSA before. In the 33, the Sean Creech Motorsport.
And number 7, if I can add something
Go ahead.
quick. In the 7, Ryan Norman, Indy Lights driver.
Nice.
That was generally kind of underfunded, but has won a race or two, so he's not too bad either.
Cool, that'll be a nice one. That's in the Duquesne, of course. The number 33 car has Yael Barbosa. Somehow Barbosa has found an LMP3 drive. That's just ridiculous. The 38 car Performance Tech, they've basically dropped down from P2 last season, so you would recognize the name Cameron Cassells, and then literally no one else in that car. So there are a few big drivers.
Hold on, Rasmus Lind, I believe, raced either British F3 last year. He raced some form of single seaters last year, or he might have did F3 Americas, but he did some F3 last year, I want to say. And then you had, I want to say, Ayrton Ori did some Formula 4 USA. So it's kind of like an open wheel crossover sort of thing for that car.
As I said, no one normal would know those names. Sorry, Chris. No one who follows a normal amount of motorsport would understand those names, but that's why we have Chris here to shed light on these things. Is there any other names besides those ones that I've picked out that really jump out to either of you, Cookie or Chris, as names to keep an eye on? Like, you know, for me, who's someone who doesn't watch the American sports car ladder or Indy Lights ladder or whatever ladder, I'm only really recognizing the names I've seen before in P2 or in other competitions, not anyone from the lower ranks. So is there anyone that you can pick out that to give a little bit of interest to?
The 74 is, like I said, I feel like I like the 54 just from, like, they have been in this position, like LMPC, LMP2, like, they've done this so much, and, like, that is such a comfortable lineup for almost all of them there, and even George Kurtz, too. So I feel like I'll pick him, but the 74's got Spencer Piggott, who obviously sports car and IndyCar, and Oliver Askew, who was Indy Lights, I believe, was he champion, and now he is racing Indy for McLaren. So they're racing so again essentially like two IndyCar, I'll just say caliber race car drivers on that lineup right there, and Oliver Askew is somehow rated silver, so
somehow yeah. What about you, Chris?
I would say Oliver Askew is probably not on the talent of, like, you know, high up there, but he's still, like, he's with McLaren, so
yeah. What about you, Chris? Any other names from the bronzes or silvers that you can sort of pick out?
Not necessarily drivers, but what about a team? The Miller Motorsports America group. If you heard Miller Motorsports before, you heard them in VLN in the Nürburgring 24. They raced the Porsche Caymans in that series, and they're coming over to America racing with the LMP3 class. Moritz Kranz and Lawrence Hoare, I want to believe, also with that team when they go race at the Nordschleife, and if I remember correctly, they probably did some LMP3 stuff in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Yes.
So that's going to be an interesting thing. I think it's not going to be my pick, but it's going to be the one that I actually look forward to look on the live timing to see how much progress they make. Should I see a German team that usually races in the Nürburgring Endurance Series and N24, because that's one of my favorite races, compete in some of these other races. They're just pretty big around the world.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good pick out. I hadn't recognized that. I did see the name Lawrence Hoare, and that's a name I'd recognize, but damn, that's a really good story. And they did try to bring a second car when the Black Swan Racing car pulled out, but they just couldn't get the drivers and the crew together in time to complete that. So, are we all decided that the 54 is going to win this class? Is that the consensus?
No, I think
74, 54.
74.
74? Okay.
I think 74. Yep.
Okay. Well,
I'll say 54 just on a smidge, but it's between those two for the class.
Fair enough. How likely is it that this becomes the return of the prototype challenge class from 3 or 4 years ago?
Likely.
Very likely.
Because we're not talking about any of the other drivers in here, and the other reason why we're talking about the 74 is because they've got 2 IndyCar drivers that are in there somehow, and not 1, because there's 4 other drivers, and all of them are going to be unknowns. So
yeah, and especially the large amateur component as well. So this is going to be what do we used to call the prototype challenge class, the safety car challenge class, or the prototype challenged class, because getting
look for Baxter's YouTube channel.
Yes, absolutely. If you have not seen the video tribute to the prototype challenge class in IMSA, please look up the Baxter's spelled BAKKSTER. Please look up his amazing tribute to the prototype challenge class. I think that is quite possibly the best circle jerk content that has ever come out of this community. So fingers crossed we don't have a set of 7 rolling safety car causes throughout the race. So, we've made it to the last class, GTD, once again the largest subscribed class. We are going to try and whiz through this as quickly as possible because we have been going now for 90 minutes. But 20 cars, how do we feel about the entry numbers in GTD? 20 cars sounds like a lot, but it's not really the most we've seen in GTD before. There's a lot of interesting names, a lot of familiar names, but it's also a few names that are missing that we'll talk about once we get through. Just on a gut feel, Chris, how do you think? What do you think about this class heading into the race?
You know what? I'm gonna say it. It's good, especially
good.
with the whole pandemic thing going on. 20 cars. It's. I think that's awesome, especially the fact the other GT series in the States. This GT Daytona grid, more than double the cars.
Yeah.
So very, very. I'd say this is successful. Well, 19 now, I believe.
Yes, sorry, 19.
Black Swan Racing. Still more than GT will jump, but the fact that you can have a full grid of cars, and if you would have to put this grid on their own race for maybe like an hour race, it would still be a good race. So very good class numbers.
Absolutely. That's a great point. It's basically its own full grid that's just tacked onto the IMSA grid. It's kind of terrifying. Cookie, what about you? What are your thoughts on the 19 cars for GT Daytona? It's a pretty impressive lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say that it should be paving the way for how it's done in the future, but this is definitely one where it's working. And whether that is because that you are involving other manufacturers and other classes, so it's more or less like, and the SRO model allows for so many of them to basically be homologated and just kind of be there available for these manufacturers to kind of like pick and choose and pluck and insert. That that's the combo, but for whatever reason they're getting a lot of just solid entries, ones that we see not necessarily here at all, and where you're just getting Daytona entries, that kind of stuff. It's very, very healthy, and it stayed like that, and I think it speaks. It's a positive and negative. It speaks just for the GT3 model working. And it's still working, but it also speaks for the fact that we are missing that SRO category more or less now, and this is the really representative of the North American GT3 racing. So I'm not going to say it's expected that I should see this much, but I think from where I think the expectations are for American GT3 racing, this is a pretty healthy amount to have for their marquee race. It's just hopefully they can try to, not obviously keep them, but, not have dwindling numbers or anything like that.
Yeah.
But again, this is a really good sign after kind of introducing this category to, IMSA and all this stuff in the format 6 years ago.
Yeah, so that's a really good point there. You hope that these teams have enough staying power to build a full season out of just this race, if that's what they're hoping to do. So let's crack into it. What we'll do is we'll go brand by brand, just to sort of break it into bite-sized chunks. So we'll start with Lamborghini with the number one. They've got the Paul Miller Racing car, as well as two cars from GRT Grasser Racing Team, I believe. Yes, there is, in fact, two. So let's talk about Paul Miller Racing first. Andrea Caldarelli is a platinum, Brian Sellers, Corey Lewis, and Madison Snow being downgraded back to silver in IMSA competition, which means he can run in this team. That's actually a really, really good lineup, and it's great to see Snow back on the grid. If you remember, he actually got upgraded to gold, not from the FIA standards, but in IMSA specifically. So he actually missed a few seasons because of that rating. And it kind of, we've talked about it before, the death knell of a gold rating for an amateur driver, which Snow is. And hopefully he has a good race. 2 cars from Grasser, they've got Misha Goldberg, Frank Pereira, Albert Costa, and Tim Zimmerman in the number 19, which is kind of the, I think, the more AM car, in my opinion, there. And then in the number 111, Rolf Nyken, Mirko Bortolotti, Stein Schotthorst, and Marco Mappelli, which is a scary lineup to start off with. Guys, Lamborghini's efforts. It's good to see. It's good to see a nice little punchy trio from the Raging Bull. Cookie, what are your thoughts?
Dang it! Oh, dang it! I was totally gonna wait for Kris to say something. No, I personally think that Lamborghini's in the best spot that they've been in a long time, maybe if ever, in GT3 racing. The car seems to be in a good BOP standing, or at least, if in a BOP setting, they are able to keep a stable setup and have that car be balance neutral, and it seems the drivers like it a lot. So it seems like they've got an actual good balance, and the car seems solid. So just from that standpoint, like they're just favorites from how they've performed in the past umpteen years now at Daytona in the GT3 category, just from that chassis. So, but then looking at just the lineups here, there's a lot of the word stacked I could be using.
We'll get some stacked stuff going later on. Kris, of the 3 Lamborghinis, which one do you reckon is the strongest? Paul Miller Racing or the one of the Grasser entries?
It's a tough call. I mean, obviously, as you said, it's between the 111 or the 1. I'm gonna roll the dice and gonna say it's gonna be a Lamborghini with the 1 on it.
Nice, I like
it.
Something we haven't mentioned, I should mention, regulations mean 2 silver drivers for these cars, and they've got to do a minimum drive time as well. Can't remember that off the top of my head, but I actually think the number 1, Paul Miller Racing, their return, hopefully they don't get taken out by the Starworks car like they did a few years ago in the bus stop. I reckon of the Lamborghinis, that's the one I want to pick. Let's jump over to Porsche. A few big stories in Porsche. Wright Motorsports return. Ryan Hardwick, Patrick Long, Klaus Bachler, Jan Halen in that car, the number 16. Pfaff Motorsport return, just faffing around a bit in the Plaid as well, and their driver lineup: Zachary Robinson, Lars Kern, Matt Campbell, Lawrence Vantor. What in God's name is going to happen there? That's incredible. Kris, you're about to jump in and say something?
Yeah, I believe with the one Roar session we had today, they topped that session. And obviously, I'm going to say it, that's the Silvers of Zachary Robichon. Excellent pickup, Porsche Cup Canada champion. And Jeb obviously just rave about him all the time. He's actually really good, despite of the lack of kind of a grid in Porsche Cup Canada that he's been competing with. But the fact that he can just jump into a GT3, and I think he'll supplement these other 3 drivers really well.
Yeah, well, Robichon is the man behind Pfaff Motorsports. He's the money man in that team, so it's no wonder that he's got some skills behind him. I think he almost won the GTD Championship back in 2019 alongside Dennis Olsen in that car as well. And then you add Lars Kern, who has the production car record at the Nordschleife. Matt Campbell, who is one of the best young Porsche drivers in the world, and I'll fight anyone to the death who says otherwise. And then Lawrence Vantor, like...
Sorry.
That's stacked. I'm going to say that's stacked. There are a few other Porsches as well we should make mention of. We have already mentioned the Wright Motorsports car. Team Hardpoint, this one's a new one to the mix. That has Rob Ferriol, Christina Nielsen, Catherine Legg, and Earl Bamber. This is Earl Bamber's project in IMSA. So Team Hardpoint EBM, Earl Bamber Motorsport. And also there's a car, Team TGM, who I've never encountered before. Ted Giovannis, Owen Trinkler, Hugh Plum, and Matt Plum, all bronzes and silvers, so I reckon that's going to be one to fill the grid. But let's talk quickly about Hardpoint EBM. That is a driver lineup. That is a very interesting driver lineup, and that is a kind of terrifying driver lineup in the 88.
Very sneaky lineup, actually.
Yeah, and I believe Christina Nielsen and Catherine Lake, I believe they're trying to find full season entries here. But definitely the good news. It's been a good weekend and a half for women in motorsport because you just have Catherine Lake and Christina Nielsen announced for this car, which we could very well see probably up front. And obviously Simona Di Silvestro racing for a Penske-backed car in the Indy 500. Just very good news for that sort of that spot in the sport in general.
And that's alongside as well 2 all-female teams in the WEC entry, which have both stepped up from the European Le Mans series, which is incredible.
Yeah, and it's also it also has Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number, so it's a confirmed win at Daytona.
Fair enough. So just quickly, how do we rate the chances of the 88? Leg and Nielsen, of course, have proven. Earl Bamber, like, him racing in his own team is kind of terrifying. Rob Ferriol, not a name I've encountered before. Chris, can you shed some light on that one for me?
I believe because Hardpoint raced with the lone Audi last year in IMSA GTD, and we all know that didn't work too well. I've seen that car off in the grass more times than I can count. It even went off at turn number 3 at Road America. Happened right in front of me, actually. So, unfortunately, that's going to be the one guy that does hold them back. But,
of course, because he's the bronze.
Yeah, but we'll have to just wait and see.
Just, again, the Ryan Kish articles saving us a little bit here. Ferriol is the team owner of Hardpoint, of course. We made mention of that. Raced in GT3 Cup Challenge USA and finished the season in second in 2019 with 2 wins and an additional 11 podiums. Now, I'm not sure about the strength of GT3 Cup Challenge USA, but that's pretty good as an AM driver. So we'll keep eyes on him. And finally, we mentioned the Black Swan racing car. They were meant to be the fifth Porsche rather. They did have to pull out very late on the piece with both Tim Pappas and then Larry Ten Voorde testing positive for COVID-19. So, unfortunately, that we won't see the Black Swan green machine on track. And we can just hope that they recover quickly. And that Tim gets back in a racing seat, because I'm not sure that he's actually driven since his Bathurst 12-hour crash in 2019. Chris, can you shed some light on that for me?
No, at least on the major races, I haven't really heard of Tim Pappas racing in anything. Okay. Black Swan, yeah, just bad luck for just the Black Swan crew.
Absolutely right. Apparently Johan's saying that he raced last year's Rolex and finished in 5th, so it shows how much we were paying attention last year.
Hold on. Tim Pappas did race the Dubai 24. That's right. He got COVID from that event.
That's actually a real shame for Tim. That sucks. Vassar Sullivan, not AIM Vassar Sullivan anymore, just regular Vassar Sullivan. 2 cars, they were the class of the field last year in IMSA. They were really just far too quick. The 12 has Frankie Montecalvo, Robert Menegas, Townsend Bell, and Zach Vaish. And then the 14 has Jack Horsworth, Aaron Telitz, Oliver Gavin, coming from the Corvette crew, obviously, and Kyle Kirkwood. Now, those 2 cars don't seem to have the same wow factor that they did last season. The 12 especially, 2 golds filling in as the pro drivers after Meganis and Montecalvo. And then, Oliver Gavin really being the only star power in the 14 car. How do we rate Lexus's chances this year, Chris?
It's an interesting one for sure. The 12, obviously Montecalvo and Townsend Bell, I believe the full season guys who weren't too bad. Robert McGinnis, Indy Lights driver, then Zach Veach, who is an IndyCar driver for Andretti, and I believe McGinnis might have a 1 Indy Lights win to his name, but in a field that's less than 10 cars, can you really tell from that win? But then you have in the 14, obviously the huge news of Oliver Gavin filling in, but Kyle Kirkwood, which he's actually been racing in the Road to Indy as well, and I believe he might have won the Pro Mazda Championship last year. It was either Pro Mazda or USF 2000, but I believe he was doing really well in the Pro Mazda Championship that ran last year. So I think in terms of if that's the only thing that they could have, or the only person that they could have picked up, I wouldn't say that would have been a bad choice.
Yep, that's fair enough. It's just striking to me that they don't seem to have the same sort of wow factor that they did last year. Last year, I mean, Hawksworth was basically untouchable, him and Telitz. But you look at some of the other names. Like I'm looking at the number 9 once again, and you can't really compare the quality of drivers there anymore. It is just a bit of a step up. Cookie, how do you rate their chances?
I think the Lexus platform was pretty good on BOP, so we'll see how it fares this time around. But it's a solid chassis, so if it's driven, within reason, it's going to be up there. So, and really the 14, I don't really see that being too much of an issue. I think that Kirkwood is a question mark slightly, but it's that that still was hammering off like 2-3 wins at a time a piece last year. So
yeah,
that stable knows how to win. So I would definitely.
The thing I noticed last year, sorry to jump over the top of you there, Cookie. The thing I noticed last year is that while on track it was an absolute bullet, in the pits it was a nightmare. Their pit stops were routinely 5-10 seconds longer than everyone else. So that's something that's going to have to play into it as well. So it's something to keep an eye on.
I mean, I think that can be a factor, but I mean that's definitely a thing that can be corrected or fixed. I think outside of the pace of the car and its reliability and drivers.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, yeah, I mean there's going to be things that might throw a wrench into their plan to win it, but it's to a point where it's proving wrong unless BOP just makes it suffer.
Yeah,
so,
fair enough. We'll jump over to Ferrari now. AF Corsa and Scuderia Corsa return for this race. The number 21 car features a terrifying driver lineup of Simon Mann, who I believe is he's the silver rated driver, Matteo Cressoni, who definitely shouldn't be a silver rated driver, and then two of the most terrifying Ferrari factory drivers, Daniel Serra and Nicholas Nielsen, in that AF Corsa car. Holy moly, they're going to be a quick pairing to marshal that car around. And then the 63 Scuderia Corsa car we've been very familiar with in IMSA competition. They've got Brett Curtis as a bronze, Marcos Gomez as a silver, who's come from Stock Car Brazil and also did a season in the Asian Le Mans series. I recognize that name from. They've got Ed Jones and Ryan Briscoe as the two pros in that car. I am blown away by the star power in the number 21 car. Daniel Serra recently got announced as a WEC full season driver for AF Corsa, and Nicholas Nielsen, who's just become an incredible force in the AF Corsa AM cars as the pro driver there for WEC and ELMS. That's a terrifying driver lineup.
Just to talk like a little bit more with even with Scuderia Corsa, that's not even that too bad of a lineup outside of the Brett Curtis, because Marcos Gomez is pretty good in Brazilian sports car racing down there, and the other two, obviously, Fred Jones and Ryan Briscoe, they're not bad either. I obviously you got to tip the hat to 21, but it's not a bad showing for Ferrari, at least for the two outfits that they've got. Like it's more of an actual, you can make arguments for that there's talent in this car than not, like where we don't have to talk them up as much.
Yeah.
And it's a weird departure for some of this, just because again, like I'm used to seeing a lot of the GTD field, while big, there's a lot of kind of unknown question marks here, but there's not a lot. We keep going through it. So
absolutely right. Yeah, it's just a field stacked with quality. And just quickly on Brett Curtis, he might be, according to Ryan Kish, he might be 54, but he's raced in the WEC, he's raced in the ELMS, he's raced at the Le Mans 24 hours. So he's certainly not a slouch of a driver, someone without any experience. So it certainly can't write Scuderia Corsa off, despite the crazy star power that is the number 21 car. Chris, what are your thoughts on the Ferrari effort? Scuderia and AF Corsa, do you reckon they've got a chance at overall victory? Well, GTD victory?
I think, I'm going to talk more about I'm going to talk about more the 63 here. Ed Jones, obviously, he was a Indy Lights driver. I believe he raced IndyCar for Chip Ganassi for a season or two. They moved on to, I think it was supposed to move on to DTM, and then that didn't. I don't think that happened. And he raced the Gulf 12 Hours just a couple weeks ago in the McLaren 720S, but fortunately that car had problems. So Ed Jones, ever since his Indy Lights Championship, IndyCar didn't do too well since he got kicked off of Chip Ganassi. So hopefully this will mark a new beginning. Obviously Ryan Briscoe, I believe he's one of the drivers that was named for the Glickenhaus program.
Absolutely.
And obviously Marcos Gomez, Stock Car Brazil, he might have been champion last year. I believe he's a champion either last year or a couple of years before. And obviously Brett Curtis, the guy who's bring the money, obviously business owner. But I think that's a pretty strong lineup. But I don't think it's going to rival, obviously, the AF Corsa car.
Yeah.
I think it still has a shot for a win.
Yeah, you certainly can't write them off. Even if I don't think that they're as close to the 21 as maybe they could be, you certainly can't write them off because we have seen crazy things in GTD. Certainly, Aston Martin are coming in with two cars. The number 23 Heart of Racing, Ian James, Roman DeAngelis, Ross Gunn, and Darren Turner, former Aston Martin factory driver in the WEC. And then a TF Sport car with Maxwell Root, Ben Keating backing up in a GTD car as well. And then Charlie Eastwood and Richard Westbrook, which is a pretty good driver from the FIA WEC Aston Martin program. TF Sport are doing some pretty scary things at the moment. They're kind of popping up everywhere with driver lineups that could win races and championships just out of they're everywhere.
Very sneaky.
Yeah, it's just sneaking into everything. And the car as well looks really, really cool. They've gone away from the red for this car and gone to a blue with a big red splash on the side. So it looks very, very cool for the TF Sport car. How do we rate TF Sport and Heart of Racing against the rest of this field? There's a lot of quality here in these two cars, but there's a lot of quality in the field as well.
Aston's pretty good. The GT3 platform for them. I mean, that new Vantage has been very good. Yeah, I think both lineups have something to say for them, but I like I like that kind of Ben Keating aspect of it with the 97. Yeah, and kind of some X factors, but a lot of it being just kind of seeing how good they can be in that car is going to be interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised if both of these ended up in the top 10 somewhere.
And I'm really liking the 23 car. You have Ian James, who raced the Panos GT4 when they were around. He wasn't too bad. Then you have Darren Turner and Ross Gunn, Aston Martin stalwarts. And they have Roman DeAngelis, who was a Porsche Cup USA and I believe Canada champion as well, and very good driver. I think he ran the 24 Hours of Spa last year, so he's definitely getting his experience in. And I think the 23 might be even better than the TF Sport car.
Oh, I'm not so sure on that. What I will say is that, pardon me, Ross Gunn is looking for a bit of redemption here after talking a bit of smack last year about some of the AM drivers around him and then jumping in for his first stint during the night hours and writing off the car as he put it into the wall on the pit exit. So I think he'll certainly be looking for a little bit of a redemption after making such an embarrassing arse of himself last year in that respect. Just quickly, Chris, can you shed a little bit of light on Maxwell Root for me, the number 97, the silver driver in that car?
Porsche Cup USA driver.
Okay, cool. Interesting then that he's driving a Aston Martin. Fair enough. I think Eastwood and Westbrook are, at this point in time, faster drivers than Gunn and Turner, but Turner, of course, has just oodles of experience in the Aston Martin program, so it'll be interesting to see how they stack up. Mercedes have 3 cars as well. The number 28 with Billy Johnson, Michael D. Quesada, Daniel Morand, and Maxi Book. That's a big name to drop in the Allegra Motorsports car. Also, Winwood Racing, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Indy Donje, and Mario Engel. Again, another crazy huge name to drop into a Mercedes-AMG GT3. And then Sun Energy One, the project of Kenny Habul, and he's got driving with him Mikkel Granier, Lucas Stoltz, and Raffaele Marciello. Again, a ridiculous name to just drop into a Mercedes-AMG car. Which of those ridiculous names has the best backup backup trio, do you reckon, guys? Chris, what do you reckon of those 3 cars? Who has the better AM lineup?
Allegra, because Michael De Quesada won this Rolex 24 with the Allegra with the Porsche a couple years ago.
Ah, yes, I remember that. That was them versus Land in the very late stages, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was them against Land, and I think it was them against Land with Black Swan in the background. Maybe. Oh no, that was when Land won. But yeah, that was when Allegra won. Michael De Quesada was in the car. I think it was Carlos De Quesada. It was another Quesada in the car that was with him too. But Mike, I think, yeah. Allegra's going to take this one with the Mercedes. I'm calling it right now.
Wow, that's pretty huge. I would have thought you would have been on the 57 train with Indy Donche. I thought he was one of your more preferred drivers.
Huh?
Fair enough. Cookie, what about you? What are your thoughts?
No, 28. I mean, that's very high up there. I'd say it's like definitely within range of top 3. For winning the category. So yeah, that's the strongest out of the 3 Mercedes.
I did not expect that. I thought everyone was going to zero in on the number 75 car. I think Kenny Habul, he's placed 2nd overall at the Bathurst 12 Hour, and Raffaele Marciello and Lucas Stoltz are incredible drivers for Black Falcon. Halp Racing Team in a variety of competitions. So I thought that was what people were going to zero in on. But I've been schooled here. Been schooled by the Americans.
We'll show you.
Absolutely right. Rounding out the GTD entry is 3 single car from single make efforts. I'll fix that up in post, probably, maybe. We've got a single Audi, which to me is a big surprise because of Audi's prowess everywhere else in the world. This is the NTE Sport car. Alan Metney, Andrew Davis, JR Hildebrand, and Don Yount. 1 gold driver and 2 bronzes. What do we think about that car?
This car is probably not going to do too well at all, because you get Don Yount, who's the bronze. He used to race the prototype challenge class. Then I think that's, and Alan Metney, who probably brings the money to the team. You have Andrew Davis, which he isn't a bad driver. I believe he was with Stevenson in those Audis when they ran IMSA before. Then you have with JR Hildebrand, that's a big name. Unfortunately, only really known for the 2011 Indianapolis 500, where he hit the wall, that famous call when Dan Weldon took the checkered flag. But unfortunately, as much as I like Audi, I mean, I don't think this car is going to do too well compared to what we saw on the entry list so far.
Well, yeah, it's a single Audi. We're so used to seeing an armada of Audi in every single GT3 series, but it's really weird that we're seeing one very sort of underpowered Audi in GTD. It's a bit of a surprise to me. What are your thoughts on that, Cookie? Were you expecting more Audis in this entry list?
No, because COVID.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this too is just the locations of some of these teams. I mean, Audi doesn't really have any North American teams that run them consistently enough.
Yep.
And so I just feel that some of the Audi teams would have come from overseas, and they're not here because of that.
Yep, fair enough. Acura are being championed by Magnus, with Archangel. So your typical Magnus crew: John Potter, Spencer Pompelli, Andy Lally, pardon me, and Mario Feinbacher coming over from the MSR operation. Running in that 44. How do we rate Magnus's chances? I don't think they have the same star power as they did a few years ago when they had Rast and Winkelhock behind the wheel, but certainly an appreciable amount of driving talent in that car.
Yeah, enough to maybe be dangerous. We'll see.
It might not be the favorite to win, but it's going to be a fan favorite because I believe their livery is like the Mach 5 in Speed Racer.
Oh, really? Oh, yes. Ah, Magnus, I love you. They are basically just R/WC Circle Jerk in a car, isn't it? Here we, no, that's not the right one. Oh, I can't find a picture of their livery on any article. Damn, that's annoying. Man, yeah, so we love Magnus. Magnus have great personality, so always hoping that they do well. Unfortunately, with the quality of names and some other teams, I don't really think they have a shot at it. But let's hopefully they do well anyway. Final car on the entry list: BMW M6 GT3 from Turner Motorsports, running in the Liqui Moly livery. Robbie Foley, Bill Auberlin, Adrian Reed, and Colin Herter. Thoughts, hopes, dreams? 2 silvers, 2 golds. Are they really going to push for the win?
Then Adrian Reed, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sorry, it's Aiden Reed.
Aiden Reed. Did he race the Asian Le Mans Series last year?
Yes, he did. He was in a LMP3 car, if I remember correctly. Running, I think he ran in the second of the Inter-Europol cars. Wait, no, he ran in the Eurasia Motorsport car, the car that was the Australian liveried car at the Bend. If I remember correctly, I reckon I do. It was a while ago, but if I don't remember correctly, that's very bad of me because I actually interviewed him, so I should remember that. Yeah, so he's a quality young driver. He's 21 years of age, so still got a lot of his career ahead of him. Bill Auberlin, BMW stalwart. Colin Herter, thoughts on Herter?
He won the Rolex 24 with BMW M8 like 2 years ago.
Yeah, there you go. I'd completely forgotten about that. So what's he doing in a Turner Motorsport car then?
I don't know. He's Colton Herta. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's still with the BMW crew, though.
Yeah, that's true. Still in the family. Any last comments before we start to try and make some predictions about this GTD field?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot. Just the number of platinums in this field is kind of scary, to be honest. I think that's something that I've particularly noticed. We've gone from a smattering of very good drivers in a more AM-based championship to just the driver talent ramping up incredibly over the last few years. It's a little bit wild. Let's get into some predictions. Guys, there's 19 cars on this entry list. I want you to give me 3 that are going to challenge for the win. I'm going to give you a second to think about it before we jump into it. While they're both thinking about it, we'll just say there is also going to be a Michelin Pilot Challenge race over the course of the Daytona weekend. That's a 4-hour race. Normally we go into the entry list for that a little bit, and Chris Washer would give us some nice just interesting names to pull out of that. But as we're already on 2 hours, we can't really get into that. But that's certainly a big event.
Hold on.
No, Chris,
I already got.
It's 2 hours. I got stuff to do, man. I got stuff to do.
We got Spencer Piggott, Russell Ward, Indy Doncha, Trent Heidman, Andrew Davis, Colin Brown, Kuno Whitmer, and then we have Ryan Hardwick. Just listen to some of the Spencer Pompelli, Chad McCumbee, former NASCAR driver, Hugh Plum and Matt Plum, Kyle Marcelli, who raced with the GT World Challenge America and with the Acuras. Owen Trinkler, who is doing double duty, I believe, as well. Robin Liddell with the Camaro. And then you have Bill Auberlin and Robbie Foley doing double duty. And that's all in the GT4 cars.
Jeez,
then in
Chris.
TCR...
Chris, please.
In TCRs, you got...
Ain't no one going to stop
Simpson,
Chris.
Former JDC guy. And Ryan Norman, former who's also doing double duty. And that's my quick rundown.
I swear, between that and the Nürburgring 24 lower classes, those are the 2 moments you look forward to most in the entire year.
I would have gone more, but you threatened me to stop.
Well, I mean, we don't have time, Chris. We don't have time. So, as you can tell, there's quality names in that field. That race is one of the best races of the year consistently. So make sure you check that out. That is on the Friday of the race weekend.
Yes.
Yep. And if you... if you're not sure when that is, make sure you download your Racing Line app and get notifications for it, and it'll convert it to your time zone. Look at that. We're doing the sponsor plug, everyone. Yeah. Okay, so that is what we've got on the weekend. Guys, GTD picks. Give me your top 3. Cookie, you can go first. Seeing with Chris.
No.
Okay, so Chris can go first.
Why can't Plug go first?
Okay, fine. I'll go first then, if that's what you guys want. I'll go first.
I want you to go first.
Me? Okay, number 9. Number 9 is going to win, and they're going to be in competition. So that's Path Motorsports. They're going to be in competition with Paul Miller Racing and... now this is where it gets hard. I picked out the 2 best ones, and now I think it's going to be the 111, the GRT Grasso Racing team. Yeah. That would be my pick. So number 9, number 1, and 111. That's where I'm going. So who wants to go next?
I mean, I'll do 1 and 9 too. I'll take a scoop of both of those, and then for my side, I'll have. Oh man, this is so tough. This is so tough. I'll probably just go with the with 14.
The Vassar Sullivan, Hawksworth,
Vassar Sullivan,
Gavin,
Gavin, Kirkwood, and Hawksworth.
Damn, that's a car, absolutely. Chris, what about you?
9, 111, 28.
28. That's the Allegra Motorsports car. Billy Johnson, Di Casada, Moran, and Book. That's a really good pick as well. So what we're seeing here is it's basically RNG, but also the number 9 exists.
Yes. Yeah.
I just can't get past, like, even the AMs in that car, Robichon and Kern, they're not amateurs. That shouldn't be allowed. That shouldn't be allowed. Oh.
Take my damn head.
That's absolutely terrifying. So there you have it. That is the Daytona 24, of course, the first round of the IMSA Championship. So the first round of the Endurance Cup as well for IMSA. The qualifying is over the Raw weekend, so hopefully we'll have that up by the time we'll have this podcast up by the time that the qualifying starts. The race starts at what time, lads?
Around 3:30 Eastern time.
3:30 Eastern, which for me is 6 a.m. on Sunday. So
just use the Racing Line app.
Yes, make sure you download the Racing Line app and support.
Then you won't have to worry at all. It'll set an alarm for you.
It will set an alarm for you. Absolutely right.
It won't brush your teeth. Don't do that. I'll be there as well, so I'll have live in-person coverage.
Oh, cool. Nice. I am jealous. I am very, very jealous. I haven't been to a racetrack for almost a year, and I feel sad.
Well, good for you.
It's not. It's not good for me. It's bad for me. I need my mental health to be restored.
That's fair. Yeah. You know what? That's a good argument. That's why I go.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, thank you very much for all your efforts in shedding light onto some of these more unknown drivers. Sorry that we had to cut you off. In terms of the prototype challenge race, I know how much you love that race, but we are running very low on time, so thank you very much, Chris.
God damn.
Thank you, Cookie and Austin as well, always, for everything you do with us.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Glad to be on for season 6, and now setting up the app as we speak. So.
Yeah. Nice. Glad to hear that.
It's going to be a good year.
Hope you get some good use out of that. Thank you, of course, to everyone who's been involved with Endurance Chat. Thank you to Lada for the awesome covers. Thank you to the Racing Line for sponsoring us. And thank you very much for listening. It is now 6 years that we've been doing our Daytona previews, our race previews, and our wrap-ups and everything. And it is because of you listening that we get to do something so cool and so widespread. So as always, I'm very appreciative of our audience, and that is you listening right now, for all the support that you've given us. I hope that 2021 is a great year in racing and a great year for everyone around, all of our listeners. And yeah, I'm very excited that we get to kick the year off with such a big event. On that note, I'm Mike Zalavari. Thank you very much for listening. Peace out!
Here 101, Gazoo! Wait, I said that wrong. It's GR010.
GR010. Thank you very much, lads.
And everybody know that I messed it up.
Yeah, that's gonna be our end tag as well. I just want to let everyone know that you messed it up.